Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Get Up 10. I am excited to present to you all this week's discussion because we talked about some things, okay? Some things. And we only really scratched the surface level. So before I introduce this week's guest, I just want to say, hey. Life has been super busy. It's been on the go, but things are happening and good things are happening. And so I've had my fair share of interviews lately, and I've been interviewing and I've been being interviewed recently. So I'm really excited to continue to share some amazing women's stories with y'all. I mean, y'all know I like to have some men on the podcast too here and there, but right now I have some amazing ladies lined up ready to share their story with y'all and help y'all to just get up and keep moving. So this week is no exception. I have Rometha Gilmore, the CEO of Girls on the Rise. She is a wife, a mother of 3 boys, an educator, and author of Public Education, the Modern Day Lynching Tree. And y'all, we talked about so much. She was just so open with her story, and just got a text message. But anyways, y'all, the day I've had, we don't got no time for editing, is real. I got a text message from my dad. But anyways, let's get into this. It is lengthy, so if you need to listen in pieces, but definitely listen all the way through, because I love some of the things that we touched on in the end pertaining to the education system. And yeah, I don't think I've ever talked about the education system before, and I know so many amazing people that are in the education field. So yeah, Rometha Gilmore, here we go. Let's get into it. Welcome to Get Up 10, Rometha. How are you today?
Good morning. I am well, or good afternoon. I am well. How are you?
I'm good. This week I started off so tired, so heavy, and today finally, when I woke up, I was like, yeah, it's gonna be a good day.
It's gonna be a good day.
Yes, and today has been. So I had a good workout today, and now I'm gonna have a great conversation with you. So I'm good.
I'm gonna get to that workout. I have to get back into that. I kind of slacked off. So yeah, I'm gonna work on that. That
Okay.
matters.
It does. But you don't have to do too much. I was just looking, somebody posted some video on Facebook talking about, it's called walk at home, and you can literally walk a mile in your house. And I'm like, that's interesting. I don't think I will personally do that right now, but I'm like, there's just so many different ways to move your body. So,
Yeah,
yes.
I want to do the walk at home. Yeah.
Yeah, I need to walk outside.
Yes.
But that's good to know.
But
I just put that in the files for several
yeah,
years from now.
exactly. Yeah. While I have, the access and ability to move about, I'll do that.
Exactly.
Outside of my house.
Well, welcome to Get Up 10. I created this podcast to encourage somebody to get back up, no matter how life has knocked them down, just to know that whatever you're going through, whatever you've been through, you're not alone and you can overcome. That's the
Mhm.
nice, polished version.
That's good. And that's good because it's about encouraging people. Our life stories can always be an encouragement to someone else.
Exactly. And my vision is for me to be able to just meet people, and they could share some of what they're going through or whatever. And I'll be like, oh, you should check out the episode with Rometha. Oh, you should check out the episode with so and so. Oh, you should check out this episode because they went through something very similar. And you're going to be so encouraged. That's my vision for my podcast.
That's what it's, yeah. I like that. I like that.
Yeah. There's that. And then also just encouraging people to be authentic.
Hmm.
I think that's so important in today's day and age, because especially with social media, I think we like to show up perfect and polished all the time. And there's power in just being real. Just
That's
being
right.
yourself.
That's it. Like, I don't know any other way to be. So I agree with that. There's a lot of fakes out there. How about that?
Yes. That's what
I'm starting to see that because
A lot of
I
fakes.
live life in my own bubble, and I forget about that sometimes. I'm like, oh wow.
Yeah, yeah. And you know what? I had someone near and dear to me like a couple weeks ago call me a fake. Like I said hello, like, hello, how are you? Hey, with your fake. And I'm like, me fake? Like, I think I am one of the most real people, that you'll come across. So with that individual, I've come to the realization that hurt people.
Mm-hmm.
So when they're hurting, they don't know anything kind to say. So you take that for what it is, and you learn to pray for those people. I pray for that person, and I love that person, and you keep moving on. It's like I'm here when you need me or when you allow me to be in your space. But right now, you're not welcoming me to your space. So you back up from it and you just pray for them. But
Yes.
I don't want to be fake.
No, and
No.
it's hard to be fake. I don't
I was
know.
gonna say it takes energy, right?
Yeah.
It takes a lot of energy to be somebody that you're not. So just being me with all my flaws and all of my mess, but knowing that all of that, I take it to God. It's like, because I am the most imperfect person. So, but I take all of that to God and just knowing He'll make me to be what He wants me to be.
Exactly. That's it. I feel like
That's
I've
it.
been saying there's like always one word that I just end up like saying. Usually I feel like it's like, wow, I love that. I love that. Like after every response. And today it's like, exactly, exactly.
Exactly. Like the kids. Facts. Yeah. Yeah. So I'm going with that.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna have to look up some more creative responses for the future, but please give me a pass today.
No, no, but just being like you said at the beginning, authentic, being real, and you know, if that's what it is, exactly, we're gonna go with it exactly today.
There's nothing else to add. Like,
That's it. Mic
yes.
drop. Truth.
Okay, but we're not dropping the mic yet because we didn't even
Not
get
yet.
into the real discussion.
We're gonna
So
hold on to it. Gotcha.
the first question that I like to ask is, how has life knocked you down? Because it's all
Woo.
about knock me down 9 times, I get up 10. And we've all been through something. So what have you been through?
Woo. That's deep. So I'm gonna give you, I think, three things.
Okay.
And I think I'm gonna say, we all deal with death in our family. So that's something that kind of knocks you down all the time. So I won't go use that one. But I think being a teenage mom, that was the first thing I think that knocked me down in life. I was 14 and I just came to the realization here lately, within the last 6 months or so. I always told, first of all, I shied away. I was always embarrassed about telling people, how old I was when I had my first son. Because when people find out how old you are now, and or if they know kind of roundabout how old you are and you tell them how old your children are, then they go to counting. So I always shied away from saying how old I was because of that, or the age that I had my first child because of that. But 14 is when I actually got pregnant, and did not realize that for quite some time. So I don't think I wanted to own that, really. I just don't think I wanted to own that. But 14, so I had my first baby at 15 in high school, just entering ninth grade. And then my second son, I had him at 17, so I was in high school, and thank God I graduated early. So that was the first thing that knocked me down. The second thing I think that knocked me down was my husband had an affair. It's been about 15 years or so ago. And when I tell you that that thing knocked me off my feet, because that's something, I don't think any person expects to experience in marriage, even though we know that the devil doesn't throw anything new. There's nothing new up under the sun. But when that thing knocked me down to probably 100 pounds, so that was the second thing. But yet we were able to salvage our marriage. Love him to this day. We're still together. It was tough, but we did get through it. And then the third thing, I think, is being an administrator in education, being a Black administrator, and just seeing how the mistreatment, all the microaggressions, being overlooked, being talked down to. Those are just the three things that stick out the most to me.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
those are a lot. And I'm
That's
happy. I'm happy though, because I'm like, ooh, we got a lot to get into.
yeah.
But yeah, those are heavy things.
Those are heavy things. Yeah.
And
So
I'm
when
real
we talk about trauma and triggers and all the things, it's
Mhm.
like, you want trauma? Yeah, girl has. I've been through some things, but God.
Yes. I have
Yeah,
this t-shirt and it literally just says that, but God.
but
And
God.
that's how I sum up my testimony in 2 words.
That's it, but God. Because it's like
Yes.
if sometimes people tell you, tell me about you, or they think they want to know. And then there are some people who, like with the affair, you think you want my shoes. You don't want to walk in these shoes because I guarantee you'll give them back. And
Mhm.
that's like, the stories that we share once we begin to unravel, pull back pieces of our lives, then it's like, no, girl, I don't want your shoes. I don't want your story. You tell your own story. So that's why when we do talk and we share our stories are significant for us, but also, to help other people because you're not alone. And anything you've gone through, somebody has already gone through it and made it through. And
Yes.
so that helps us get through or get to the other side of through. It's like whatever you're going through, you just want to get to the other side of through. Like that little tunnel, I can see the other side. And with the help of God, it's like, I'll get there.
Mhm. And the other thing I've been thinking about lately is with the things that we go through, we're presented the opportunity, like, are we gonna get better or are we gonna get bitter?
Yeah,
And so
absolutely.
I want the people who got better.
That's right. That's
How did you
right.
do that?
Yeah. And I think because all those things that I just stated from, you know, giving birth early, I could have been bitter. The affair, of course I was bitter, but got better. And then with in education, same thing, bitter, but turned that bitter to better. So, you know, that lemonade or that sweet tea is better than that unsweet tea for me. I choose the sweet side.
I love that because I'm a big sweet tea girl.
Yeah, I choose the sweet side, and then put some, lemons on top of it if I want to freshen it up even more. So yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, so I got everything written down that you said. So I'm not gonna miss anything.
Okay, okay.
So, where did you grow up?
So I grew up right here in Ocala, Florida. Horse capital of the world. That's the easiest thing. So when people are trying to figure out, it's like, I'm not a geographical person, so I'll give you in between Gainesville and Tampa or Gainesville and Orlando. So that's generally where I tell people. But once you say horse capital of the world, most people know exactly where you're talking about. So
Well, that's
Ocala, Florida, born and raised.
a new fun fact for me.
Search it.
But I do
Search
know
horse
where.
capital of the world. It's like
Okay.
right here in Ocala, but do I own any horses? Absolutely not. That's a whole nother conversation because that's a whole nother conversation. It's like you're born and raised somewhere where there's so much um money or opportunity to be wealthy, but
Mhm.
yet you never taste that wealth because no one ever taught you about it, that two sides of the track.
That's very
But
real.
but God. So
But
you know
God.
better and you do better. So I think like for my children now, now that they know, I know it's coming. We'll pretty soon, have what others have, you
Yes.
know.
And
Yeah,
then
the
some.
wealth. of the wicked is laid up for the just. Come on.
I always talk about that.
Oh.
I'm like, why don't we, this is in the Bible. Like, why don't we talk about
Yeah.
this? Because you know what that
Yeah.
means? That means I don't gotta do too much. They doing all the work for me
Yeah.
and at the right time.
Come
Wealth
on.
transfer.
Thank you,
So
Lord.
I'm happy you said that because yeah.
What is that exactly?
We're gonna get off track, but wealth, like biblical wealth, is really one of my favorite things to talk about. And I was just telling my friend, like, I don't know if anybody from church is listening. I love you, but the few times that I have brought up like my desire to be wealthy in church, it's been met with like, oh well, most people are struggling, and I'm like, no,
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 no, no,
no, thank
no.
you.
And because most people are, I shouldn't have to, No, that's not my God doesn't want me to struggle. And when we think about being wealthy, a lot of times it's not. Now, look, mind you, I love money and I want money. But sometimes my health or my wealth is my mental being, just being good mentally, spiritually, all those things are wealth. A
Yes.
lot of times, again, we equate wealth to houses and cars, and no, it's not all of that. Now, I do want all of those things. I do, but it's just not that. It's just not that.
Yeah, exactly. Every time I read through certain scriptures, I always underline how it says God is like rich in kindness,
Yeah,
rich in whatever, like mercy.
that's right.
But I'm like, I
Right.
like that.
That's
Rich in
right.
kindness.
That's right. Lord, teach me,
Yeah,
train me to
I
be
want
rich in those things
I
where
want in
I
on
fall
that.
short.
Yes. Okay, but back to I wanted to ask like where you grew up because I was wondering like how that influenced your upbringing. Or what was your childhood like? Somebody asked me that recently. It was good. So I'm like, yeah, let me try.
Yeah. So my upbringing, let's see how to put it. I was raised in, I guess, a broken home. My dad left when he left when I was in elementary school, probably second, third grade, maybe around that time. And
Mhm.
so that meant your mom struggles. You have a struggling mom. You're living in housing, different housing complexes, low income housing. So I was raised in the projects. So people think being raised in the projects is, they equate that to being a bad thing. But for me, I think that built your resiliency. So when we were in the projects, I can remember having fun. You enjoy your community. Everyone looked out for everyone. So it was although it was bad, it wasn't bad because it taught you, how to work hard. It taught you, work ethic, taught you how to treat people because everyone out here, we're all the same. No one is different. We're all living in the project. So um, but yeah, so that taught me always to work hard and never to give up. If I wanted better, I know I had to work towards it. So that and just seeing my mom always work, seeing my grandparents always work. I don't recall. Well, one of my grandmothers, my maternal grandmother, she just told me she was married. She was married twice, but it didn't work out. And then my paternal grandmother, she was married once, and of course that didn't work out. So you see those things in your families, and you just want better. So that's always been my belief. But I think my upbringing, again, we were family oriented. I think when we were younger, like my mom's sisters and my dad's family, everyone always got along. And so now that I'm a mom, it just helped me to want the same things for my kids. Like, you are all you have. When somebody walks away from you, you're all you have. So, family means everything to me. And I learned from what I didn't have. Um, I learned to try to obtain that in my adulthood, if that makes sense. Hopefully, yeah,
Yeah, I love
yeah,
that. I'm also really big on family, so I can
yeah.
relate to you on that. So how you end up getting pregnant at 14? Like, was
Yeah,
it like a
honey.
boyfriend or like
Let's talk about that. So I was again, we moved from one, and so this is how my mom, she kept working, trying to do better. So we went from the projects to another low income housing complex. And from there, mom started working. She ended up getting this factory job, working 12 hours a day, sometimes 7 days a week. And so that gave me time to go and play. Unstructured time. You do things when there's no structure, the lack of structure. So we moved out from that second low income housing complex to we ended up going into some better apartments, on the other side of town, on the other side of the tracks. So with that, I met a new set of friends. And one friend in particular, she and I are still friends to this day. I always tell her, like, girl, you're the reason, I started having sex and all of that stuff because I was trying to keep up with her. But she was a baby of like 7 kids. And so she was able to go and do a lot more. And so again, she hooked me up with this guy, and he and I dated for a little bit. And his parents allowed him to have company over. So, and you can do things in the house because that's what his parents allow. And he had actually had his mom and his dad. So I would just sneak away, and you don't know what you're doing. Even when you're doing it at that age, you don't know what you're doing. You're just doing it because that's the thing. That's the thing. And so that led to me being pregnant. And when I became pregnant, when I found out that I was pregnant, he ended up getting in trouble and he went to prison. So, and guess what? So now I'm 14 pregnant, and this baby's dad is incarcerated. And that's pretty much how it went from that point,
was he
that him
older?
being a year, probably a year older.
I'm like, how he get like what? How do you get insecure?
Listen, yeah, yeah. And so I think they were originally from Palm Beach. And again, this is, we don't know. We hook up with people and we know nothing about these people. We know nothing about these people's backgrounds. But because we're looking for that love and attention,
Mm-hmm.
in all the wrong places, or the places that we're not getting it from home. So we go out looking for that. So I didn't know that, they were, they got in trouble a lot. They had run-ins with the law and all of that, and not knowing that that's what I had gotten myself into. And I think for a majority of my son's life, he was incarcerated. I can remember taking my baby to the prison jailhouse to see him.
Wow.
But and that is like, I knew that's not what, like, who wants to take their child to a jailhouse to see a man? Because we're teaching our children like this is right. It's like, no, that's not. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so that's how I got pregnant. And again, so and I can't tell you, we probably were not intimate but a few times. And yeah. It only takes one time. So,
Exactly.
one time. So you may think a couple times. And
Oh,
again, don't when I tell you I don't know anything, I know a few things about him. I can probably say his date of birth, you know, um, his triggers are, but to say that I don't know undercover, like what's in him, what's inside of him, what he's made of. I don't know his dreams. I don't know any of, things that he desired to have or to be or to do. I didn't know anything about him. So, but
yeah.
God,
But God.
but
I
God.
was just thinking recently as well about how like this whole like hookup culture and like no strings attached, like there's I don't know if
Yeah.
it's that easy or that simple.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
there's gonna be some residue, there's
Yeah. You don't
drink.
know what you're that's right. You don't know what you're getting, you just don't know what you're getting into. But by the grace of God, I met my husband in high school. So he and I
Oh
met,
wow.
I think my 10th grade year, maybe my junior year. And my son was about one and a half, maybe going on two, maybe one-ish. And that's who my son knows as his dad. You know, he knows his real dad, but that's
Mm-hmm.
his dad because he came in and he raised my son from that point on and until today. And my son is now, he's actually he has a birthday coming around the corner right now in April. So my son, I think he's turning 34.
Oh
34.
wow. You
Yeah.
look good.
Thank
I
you,
was like,
Lord.
wow.
Thank you. Yes. Yep.
Because
My
I,
baby.
I didn't I didn't take time to try to do the math or the
I
numbers
know.
or any of that. I'm just looking at your beautiful skin and I'm like, she got a how old?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. I'm telling you. So, and so I tell people I have no regrets on, how my life played out because if if I go back and I do it all over again, who's to say I would have my same boys that I have? And I think my boys are the reason that I have been, was able to be successful and work hard and have those work ethics. Because when I think back, before I got pregnant, we were sneaking out and going to different little bars and clubs and doing things that, we weren't supposed to do. So I just don't know where that would have taken me, where I would have ended up. So, right now I would be comfortable with saying my children saved my life.
Yeah. I can
Yeah.
say the same thing about my daughter because I feel like I was stuck in the cycle of like toxic relationships. And
Hmm.
I even look at it as like my relationship started off toxic and escalated to abusive. And
Hmm.
so I feel like if I didn't have my daughter, I would still be like out here running around looking for love in the wrong places, just honestly, settling for these men that just we're not enough, we're not it, we're not the one
That's
because I
right.
didn't stop to like love myself properly.
Yeah.
But having a daughter forced me to really like put the brakes on
Put the
because it's like,
brakes on.
yeah, the emotions that I had to waste before, it's like I don't have that anymore because I can't have you having me over here in my bed in tears, upset because you want to act a fool. And then now because I'm in bed upset, I can't be the mom I need to be. Like I don't have that time to waste anymore.
Yeah.
So I can
But we
really
waste that. I mean, we waste that time. And I would say even with my husband and I, good Lord, we had been married over 10 years and probably together at least 15 to 18 years before the affair came happened. And even with that, I would say again, my boys saved me, through the grace of God and those boys, because it's like you lose yourself, you lose yourself in someone else.
Mhm.
You allow that thing to overcome you and take over, and it's like that's not what God intended. So through those boys, I was able to find myself, and now love myself so much that now I love my husband. I don't always like him, and we tease, we laugh about that. It's like I don't like you all the time, but I love him. But I love myself so now that I would walk away now. If something came up like that, it's like I'm better than that. Not to say, and I know you're supposed to honor your vows and you're supposed to, to death do us part and all of those things, but just being in a place where I love me so much now, it's like I know that I don't deserve to be hurt, and I don't deserve to be mistreated, and I'm not going to be anyone's second. I am her. I am number one, because being raised just in my home, I've always been the lady. Now I have two granddaughters. But I'm the queen, I am she. And if you take away from that, then you deplete who I am. You take away from who I am, and I can't allow that to happen. So I think God, things happen. And again, I don't think no one wants to experience bad things, but I think there's a lesson in everything that we learn. And to give you an example, before the affair, if my husband if he was away on a trip or something, I could not sleep, and it's like I would be restless all night. But baby, now sleep like a baby. Sleep like a baby. And I think sometimes God allows things to happen, it's because maybe you are, giving too much attention to this or that. And so things come around and they ground you and they humble you. And now it's like, again, I love God so that I know God does not want me to experience hurt like that again. And
Yeah.
so again, when I say my boys, because of them, because I was losing, I had really almost lost who I was. And it's like, if I lose me in this situation, who's going to take care of my kids? Because the person that hurt you is still living, they're still going on, whether they're not saying he wasn't hurting in the, at the same time, but he was going on doing whatever. And I still had those boys here. And it's like, dust yourself off, get up, dust yourself off and get to moving because these boys are watching you. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
So you met your husband in high school, and
Uh-huh.
then what happened after that? Like, did you guys date? Did you go to college? Like,
So I did go to college. I went to college here at a community college again. When we graduated, I had when we graduated, and I just posted a video, a couple days ago, but it's a picture of us from graduation. But I was pregnant and I had my other son on my hip. So after graduation, once I had my baby, I think as soon as I turned 18, we moved in together. Again, we didn't know anything about ourselves. We didn't know anything about parenting. I didn't know anything about wasn't a wife. So of course we're shacking, we're doing what your parents and your grandparents tell you not to do. So yeah, and yeah, we lived together and co-parented and did what we thought we were supposed to be doing.
so
Not in the
what
eyesight of God though.
you got? Y'all were
Yeah.
just doing the best that you could with
Yeah,
what
we were
you knew at the time.
yes, yes.
So what finally led you to get married, like to make that commitment?
So funny that you asked. I just shared this with a young lady last week. I started a parent support group and I was talking with one of the young ladies. She's been with her children's dad since high school as well. And it's been over probably 15 years or so. And I'm like, girl, if he hasn't married you by now, that joker is not going to marry you. So with my husband, we had gotten engaged. We actually had gotten engaged and called the engagement off at one time because he was just young. And I mean, we were young. And I'm not just gonna say he was young and dumb. We were both young. And so called the engagement off. We ended up getting staying together or, being together, he doing his thing, I'm doing my thing, but yet we're together type thing. Um, so we ended up getting re-engaged, but we were re-engaged for quite some time, years. And finally we went to one of his brothers got married. His brother got married in Palatka. And at that wedding, I'm like, if his brother is getting married, that joker is going to marry me or I'm leaving. And that's pretty much from that day. I think we planned the wedding in less than 6 months or so. It was a real quick, and we had a pretty big wedding, but I had to tell him, like, either you're going to marry me or we just have to go our separate ways. I'm not going to continue this way. And it should not have had to be that way, but it was. I call it for what it was. It's like, nope, we're getting married and we did.
It's like that sometimes.
Just listen, just like that. Because again, at that point, I know, man, I'm a good catch. But like the older people say, we give them the milk, and then they're getting a whole cow for free, and however that adage goes, and it's like no. And again, knowing all the time that I wanted to show my boys different, and I wanted to provide stability for my boys, and I really, we all want to be with our children's dad. That's every girl's dream. I don't think there's a girl that has a baby and like, oh, I don't want to be with him. You ultimately you start out wanting to be with your children's dad, and so it's like, okay, either we're gonna get married or we have to go our separate ways. Knowing I didn't mean it, probably did not mean that, probably did not mean that, but it worked. And so here now, this year, we're celebrating 24 years of marriage. And then, like I say, high school sweethearts. So we've been together 32, going on about 32 years.
Wow.
A long
Nice.
time. That's a long time.
Yes, it is. Because
It is.
I think my parents might be the same number of years. I'm losing track. Oh no,
Yeah.
my parents are more than you.
Yeah. I
Because
lose track too.
I just know, like, I take my age and I add 3, but I accidentally took my age and subtracted 3. So I'm 27. So am I doing my math right? Yeah, I thought they were 24 as well, but they're not 24. They're 30,
Yeah.
now 31.
See,
Ooh.
my baby's older than you. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think my oldest is 32. That means my middle one, I think Jay is 30. I think he just turned 30. Yeah. And my baby's 22.
Nice.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. They're not even babies. Those are like men. Those are
No.
adults.
And I tell people all the time, it's like, those are not babies. Like, yes, they are. Those are
They're
my
always gonna be
babies.
your
They
baby.
are always going to be my babies. And they're all good boys. They're all good boys. And even so, when I think about, having my kids so young, there's a statistic out there that says, for every girl that has one baby by the age of 15, the chance of you graduating from high school, I forget the exact percentage, but it declines. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
I actually had two, before I graduated from high school. So I should not, be where I am if I allow
Yeah.
society to dictate, my life. So again, it's perseverance, determination. It got me to where I am today.
I love that because I feel like some of these statistics and what we hear is quote unquote common or normal really gets in our head. And it kind of
Yeah.
drives me crazy because it's like,
It
no, like it doesn't have to be like that.
does not have to be like that. It's like, I'm gonna beat that. I'm gonna defy that one. Like, that is not me. But you have to have that mind space to want better, and
Yeah.
sometimes you have to encourage yourself, because along the way, I had of course, I had a lot of people I know I let down getting pregnant early. And in my book I talked about my dad. Of course, he left. He had moved to Iowa, I think. And when he found out that I was pregnant, he called me, and the first thing he said was, "You're having an abortion." And it's like, "I'll show you." Okay. And I can't even say, when I think about it, it's like, would I have even considered that if he had not said that to me? So him saying that to me, it's like, you don't get a chance to tell me that. And so yeah, and then other family members, they talk about you. Even with my marriage, I had a lady recently tell me that there were some of my aunts, oh, he's not gonna marry her because she already has a baby, and and then we got married. Oh, they're not going to stay married long, and 24 years later. And so it's, people will put you in the grave if you allow them to. And it's like, no, you don't, I'm not giving that to you. You will not dictate. You will not write my story. How about that?
Yeah, I love that. And I'm happy that we're
Yeah.
touching on this because I'm just going to vent a little bit.
Yeah.
I shared very openly about, like being in an abusive relationship and getting divorced. And I'll get people who will be like, oh, like, I pray that you heal, like, take your time. I know that must be so difficult. And I'm like, I'm good. I'm
I'm out
good.
of it.
Yeah. I'm
Yeah.
like, maybe, and that's why I think about statistics or whatever, because you think about like somebody might be dealing with divorce for years or still struggling to overcome their trauma for years. And it doesn't have to be like that. It doesn't. And that's not my testimony. Thank God.
Exactly.
Thank you, Jesus. Like, I will not allow that to rob any more years of my life than it already has. And
That's
so, it's always like people on social media who don't, they mean well, like they don't really know me. So I
Mhm.
think we have to definitely just, like take other people's comments with a grain of salt sometimes, especially when they don't really know us or
Absolutely.
they, the other thing I think about is if I look at somebody who's trying to speak into my life and they're not living a life that I want to live, why am I going to listen to them?
That's right. That's right. And even when we hear stories like your divorce, my infidelity coming in my marriage, it's still, although we hear those things and divorce, infidelity, it's still different for everybody.
Mhm.
Everyone's situation is different, so again, you don't dictate how I recover. You don't dictate how I walk through whatever it is I'm having to walk through at this time, because again, this is something that God has allowed to happen for whatever reason. And it is up to me, and it's my God, he's going to see me through whatever it is. And you keep all your judgment to yourself. Keep it to yourself. Because
Exactly.
we all, I don't care what it is, we all have gone or will go through something or are going through something now. And
Mhm.
again, how it plays out in each of our lives, it plays out differently. And even I can think back, I was at the point where I thought I wanted to divorce my husband. I did. I was hurting so bad. It's like I just wanted the pain, to go away. But again, that wasn't my story. I decided to stay in, and I wanted to fight for my marriage, and that's what we decided to do. But again, there's somebody else who's gone through infidelity, and no, I'm checking out. And hey, sis, I appreciate you. I commend you if that's the way you decided to go. Because when we go back into biblically, that is a reason, to leave your marriage. That's a reason to divorce. But, God plays out, differently with everybody. Same God, but my situation, again, what he's telling me to do may be different than what he's telling the next person to do. So we have seasons in our lives, and my season may look differently again than your season. But my thing is to trust God. And I do believe for me, staying in my marriage, it was probably one of the best things that could have happened to us. And again, everybody doesn't have that testimony, but that's my testimony.
Yeah. And I'm glad that you brought that up because that was our next point of discussion. So you said the infidelity happened 15 years in?
Yeah, it's we were, oh, let me see. My son, my baby 22, he was probably about 5, 4 or 5 at the time. So yeah, 18 years ago. 18 years ago. So that's a long time ago.
Yeah.
And again, we had already been together. Oh God, I had him when I was about 26, 27. So we had been together quite some time, at least 10 years or so. My math may be a little off. But again, remember, we were together for years, even before we got married.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I was about 26 again when I had Jai. And it happened, 5 years. So maybe in our 30s, early 30s is when that happened. Yeah.
And was there like what was I'm not I'm not sure what the right word is. Like what was it like in your marriage at that time? Like were you aware
Girl,
that something was broken or like did
girl,
it
no.
completely okay.
No. So let me tell you this. I'm gonna throw one at you even bigger because a lot of people, again, I think I shared it in the book, but my husband was a pastor.
Oh.
And exactly. And that he had been a minister for probably at least five to 6 years or so. He had been a minister. And I tell you, as soon as we, got to the church, as soon as he became a pastor, because he was a minister at our home church, and as soon as he went and became pastor at another church, it happened probably a year after that. So it's like, you always hear people say the devil is busy. So to me, we had like we were good, a perfect marriage, most people would say. We were good. And um he started real estate. And so I can't say that 100% that there was nothing that was going on in our marriage that would have made me think that he was out doing something other than him becoming or getting into real estate. So of course, with him being in real estate, he has a full-time job. He's doing real estate as well now, past the real estate course. And so he's just working to provide for his family. And he's away because he's doing real estate. So I would never put, two and two together that something was going on. And I think I don't know. And you know how you say women have this intuition. There was
Mm-hmm.
one night that they were supposed to be at a real, I think a thing for a real realtors dinner or something came up, and he hadn't gotten home, and it's like, okay, so that just brought something up, and it's like something's not right. And from that point, I started to question it. And I think when I first initially asked him, he of course denied it. But from that point, I began to watch behaviors, and those things as women, they go up, those antennas go up. And finally he couldn't. Let me tell you how good God is. Let me tell you about this. So his computer, and I'm sitting right here in the house now. So one morning, I guess he left to go to work, and his computer was sitting in the house, and an email came through the computer. It's like, oh, and there you go. There it was. But and the thing about it, the girl that he ended up having an affair with, um, real estate. Remember, I said real estate. He was actually looking to find her a place. So they had this class that they had started here, some kind of Black um, community class or something they started. And they were both a part of that class. She was new to our area. And so he was supposed to be looking for her an apartment. And I guess, when you spend time with people, things happen. And there goes our story. And it rocked us, for probably about 6 months, probably, because it was pretty fresh when I first started, found out. I think it was maybe a month in, maybe, or something to that extent. But still, for about 6 months, it rocked us. It rocked us. It rocked us bad. Yeah. So that foundation, that sound, steady foundation, that we had. And even again, when you think, people, oh, he was a pastor, he was. He still is a pastor. And so we really we ended up having to get counseling, and it wasn't so much about me as it was him. It's like, that's between you and God, because you are God's spokesman. And so we had to work on that. But thank God, you know, if it happened again, now, like I said, with my kids, I don't have any regrets. I wouldn't want to redo it. But if someone said, would you want to go through another affair? Absolutely not. Would you stay? I can't tell you that. I can't tell you that. For that time, though, I stayed. But to say if something came like that again, that I would remain, I wouldn't. But I had I call her my spiritual mother, and she would always tell me, it's not just about you. You have these kids, and, think about your kids and all of those things. So I had to take all of those things into perspective. And being from a broken home, I did not want to give that to my kids. So even at that moment, we were broken, but together we were able to build that thing back up. And it took time, it took time, but we're good. We're good now.
Good. You said a few things that I was hoping that you would say, and also that I want to touch on. Of course, my brain is gonna go blank, but I know so you said that he's a pastor, and I'm really big on creating safe spaces for people in ministry, because they are held to a higher standard. In a way, it's like rightfully so, but at the same time, we cannot forget that like pastors are people too, and like pastors' wives are people too. Like they have their struggles.
Girl, that's a whole nother we'll do a whole nother episode on first ladies, pastors' wives, because it's people really, they don't know you're human. They take that out of the picture. It's like, no, they should do this. And again, rightfully so. Standards should be, higher. But we're still God's people. And people overlook that. And then people always remember, your past. So even now, I can talk about the affair and I'm done. I'm good. But there are people who still, they'll try to hold that over, over their head. And even still having my children at the age I had my children, it's like people will try to pin you in a box if you allow them to. But God's grace is sufficient for me. His grace is sufficient for us all. And so with that, it's like, once God has forgiven us, once we've repented, we're moving on. Now you stay stuck in that if that's what you so desire. But we're moving on.
I love that. That's so important as well. Like to just keep moving on and not get, like going back to what other people would say or other people would think. I know, not from personal experience necessarily, or maybe a little bit of personal, but like when you are cheated on, there can be this opportunity to think that it's your fault, it's something that you did.
Absolutely.
But what you said was like, that's between you and God. And I love that, because he probably, I mean, your husband is not here to speak for himself, but I can imagine that he has his side to the story too, of like what got him there. And I'm happy that you guys had a support system and counseling that was able to help you walk through that. How did you rebuild like intimacy and trust after that?
Ooh, child. Time. Time. Because it didn't, I don't think you never stop, or I never stopped loving him. I was hurt from his actions. And I think I was more hurt for the people of God. It's like you're pastoring these people, so the people of God and my children, it's like I was more concerned about everybody else other than me. And so coming back around to being intimate with him. The love was there, but the touchy feely type thing, it took time. It took time. So it wasn't anything that, oh, I'm just, because you're my husband, I'm gonna child, please. Yeah, so time. I would say time heals all wounds, and time. And you have to let time has its place, you
Yeah.
know.
And are you able to like confidently say that like I have seen that man grow, I have seen that man change, or like God did something in him?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'll go back to say again, in the book of Ecclesiastics, it talks about seasons. So there's a season for everything. And even, the same man that I married, or the same man that I met in school, high school, that's not the same man that I married. The man that I married, is not the pastor at the time, or the minister. The minister now, the pastor is not the minister. So seasons, with every season we grow, and I can say that I have seen growth in him, and I will also say that there's still growth. There's still more growth to come.
Mhm.
Because we're always talking, and I'm always talking, with him about communication. It's like I tell my friends, it's like he's the introvert, I'm the extrovert. And women, we like to talk. That's what we do. We want to talk everything through. So even now, still just like, nope, we need to have a conversation about this. And I'm sorry, I'm laughing because recently, Direct TV, I let the Direct TV get disconnected, and I had been telling him for a while that I was going to let it happen. And he's a big TV person, but I told him, I was like, that's just a distraction. And so when we don't have that anymore, it forces you to talk at night.
Mhm.
And so it's just those things that, even that I think he realizes it as well. It's like, now when we go in the room at night, we're talking a little more, and it's still a growth process. So I don't think we'll ever get to the point where we totally arrive and we're going to say, oh, things are perfect. And no, things are good, and we continue to work on making things better. He makes me happy, and I love him for that. I love the God that's in him. And I think even with saying that, having a relationship with God, we can still fall out of fellowship with God. And
Mhm.
people miss that. So I think where he's at now, he's in, he would have to speak for himself. But what I see, I believe he's in good fellowship with God.
That's good. That's
Yeah.
beautiful. And I really appreciate that because recently, I guess because of church, I've been exposed to more married couples a little bit more closely than in other seasons because I guess I'm spending time with the wives as I do
Uh-huh.
my different small groups. And I hear them say that, like, God has changed me, God has changed him. He's not who he used to be. And I think that's so beautiful and that you should be able to say that after all these years.
Yes. Yes.
I know, like,
Yes.
with my daughter's father, I haven't, it's been, my daughter's gonna be 4. So I'll have known him for about 5 years now. Even though we have not been ever since our separation, we haven't been, like, in close communication or anything, but from what one of the things that was part of my deciding factor to leave was that one of my friends told me, like, "It might take him 10 years to become the man that you need." And at the time, I was like, "Well, I don't know if I have 10 years to give right now." And unfortunately, to this day, I feel like I have not really seen major change in him. And so I am encouraged by wives who are able to talk about the change that has occurred in their marriage because I still do very much believe in marriage and love and all those things. So I'm
It's
always
a
going
good
to
thing.
yes.
And I think the bigger thing, I think, it's like not so much it's not so much the change in him as it is the change for me. And it's like wanting change and seeing growth within myself. And I think learning, knowing my value, I think that's what's most important. And knowing that he does not want to see me hurt. My daddy does not want to see me in pain and experience pain like that, and unnecessary pain, because if we're going through something, whether, I agree or not, let's come in to the table and talk about it. And again, that's why I say I'm so big on communication. Sometimes I may talk too much, but I do believe that talking will help us avoid some of those things, because I'm human and I see a good looking man. Ooh, hey, whoa, yeah, I'm human. But I have to know within myself that because I see someone that looks good, I can't entertain that. I have to be able to cut that off. But again, just loving myself enough to allow God to allow me to love him. And that's what it's about. So I can't love him by myself. When I think Ephesians, I think that was in Ephesians, I was reading about wives loving your husband and all that. I still have to go back and read that. Okay, God, what does that mean? How does that look to me? Or how do you want me to live this out? I really have to ask those questions. And how does that look for this season, in our life? Because again, it may have looked different, a couple years ago or even 6 months ago. But what does that scripture say for right now in this season of our lives? So,
That's beautiful.
yeah.
I was gonna say something else and I can't remember. Oh, I just wanted to say I love how you have been able to still like discover your worth and dig into self-love even while being a wife, because
Mhm.
I know and let me before I go on, like I think it's encouraging because it just goes to show that there's so many different paths and journeys, and you can still get the things that you're supposed to along the way on your path. Because
Mhm.
I know like for some women like myself, it's like I had to get into this trash relationship before I really stopped and discovered self-love and my self-worth, and like God is still kind of working on that with me, because
Mhm.
he like me and God been going deep.
I know that's
He's
right.
Yeah, he's like
I know that's right.
I'm not just healing the hurt from 2020. I'm not just healing the hurt from the last few years. I'm healing the hurt from the little girl who was in 8th grade. And so like that's my journey, and then I know for some women they are able to discover that before they become a wife and bring that into their marriage, and then there's other people like me where it's like they get into bad relationships and then take a break and get that self-love and then move forward. So I love that you within your marriage and your own journey have still been able to know your worth and love yourself
Yeah.
like along the way.
Yeah. And I think even now, like just figuring out who I am, because at 14, you don't know who you are at 14. And so you go from being a young mom and now you become a young wife. And now you got this man that's coming to you and telling you, oh, God has called him to be a minister. What? So all of the things, not knowing who you are for all the years, we just we rock to the beat that we think we're supposed to be rocking to. And it's like now in my age, now that, my baby is in college, and we're like empty nesters now, it's like really finding out who I am, who God really created me to be, and what I'm supposed to be doing, because everything else along the way, you're just doing the best that you can. You're doing the best that you can to be this wife, to be this mother, to be this first lady and all the things. And it's like, but who has God said I am? Who am I really to God? And so now being able to uncover that, and like I say, I love me some me. I mean, I've always loved me, but I just love me some me now. And I know I don't have to accept certain things, because before you accept things and you just keep going, but it's like, not anymore, just embracing the person that I am now, and being bold enough again to share with others, to try to help encourage young girls. That means a lot to me. It's like, if I can help you avoid the pitfall, then I am. If I can encourage you to love your husband, if I can encourage you to, go to God on his behalf, because, I think I prayed for him when he couldn't pray for himself, because when we fall, we think God no longer loves us. And so here I am, I'm hurt, but yet I'm probably caring more about you right now than I am myself, during that situation. But now, full circle, is like, I love who God has created me to be. And all of that, none of that was easy to get through, but I got through it, by God's grace.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I'm just so encouraged listening to you, because I want more and more women to be able to say what you're saying. It's like, whether you get there at 25 or
Yeah,
45 or
yeah,
65, like,
you
I
can
just
get
hope that
there.
you get there, because it's
Get there.
so beautiful.
Yeah.
All right. We have been talking for a while, and we did not even get into your story around education.
Yeah.
Forgot that you are the CEO of Girls on the Rise. I'm like, we didn't even
Yes.
talk about none of that. So I'm like,
Yes.
because we could keep going a little bit. I'm like, do you want to go into that, or you want to do like the short version? Like,
You tell me what's your question? Tell me what you want.
okay, so the three things that you touched on in the beginning was being a teenage mom, going
Hmm.
through an affair in your marriage, and then being an administrator in education. And I know
Yeah.
you're very passionate about education.
Yes, yes. So education. And the funny story, you're a nurse. So I talk in the book about education was not what I wanted to do first. I actually wanted to become a nurse. Girl, I went to nursing school 3, 4 times probably and did not pass. So I was actually, and I think I did LPN probably maybe twice and didn't pass, because when they say you need to set the 75, you can't have a 74.6. It has to be a 75, or at least here they didn't round. Um, so I was in school twice for nursing, but during that time, again, still going partying, and we weren't in the church. We went to church, but we were not in the church at the time. So I think that may have had some a lot to do with me not being successful. But I went back, while in church, being part of the church, I went back and was in the registered nursing program, and same thing. I mean, I would do well in clinicals, going out. But when it came to the assessments, I always struggle at those assessments. Um, and so it's like I felt that I was just hitting my head against a rock. And I said one day, just to my boys, I was like, okay, I can't keep doing this. I need to find something that's going to provide security. And so I asked my boys, I only had the two at the time. And I was like, what do y'all think mama should do? And they were like, be a teacher. I was like, okay. They probably were, I know they regretted it later, and so I went into education, and 21 years later, and in that 21 years, I would say after the affair, I took a year off from education. So I had been a classroom teacher probably for about 10 years at that time, and felt that I needed something different. So I went back to go to school, and I was accepted into, I think, the LPN program at Taylor College. It's in Bellevue, Florida. But my husband ended up getting laid off at the time. So it's like, okay, I can't go to school if he's laid off. We needed an income. So I had to email and, say thank you, but I declined the seat because my husband, was laid off. And so I went back to teaching, but right before school started back, he ended up getting a job. So it's like, I gave up my spot. But So I say all of that to say sometimes we think we know what we want, but that may not necessarily be what God wants us to have or what he wants us to do. And so for the education, it worked well for me for that season of my life because I was able to be home with my kids. And when I tell you the time that you spend with your kids, you cannot, nothing replaces that. I don't care how much money you make, all the nice clothes, shoes, trips, those kids are going to remember you being with them, spending quality time. So being in education, again, I was able to be home on the holidays, summer break, spring break. And those are the times that we went and took trips and did things. So education was good for me during that time. So as my baby, once he got into high school, he was, I think that's when I ended up being promoted. I went from classroom teacher to dean, and I served as a dean of students in middle school for like 4 or 5 years. And then I received a promotion to be an assistant principal at an elementary school. And so I served in that capacity for, I think, about 4, maybe close to 5 years. But I'll tell you, in that, it was so much trauma and, like I say, all the microaggressions and just all of the mistreatments in there, because as long as you're perceived to be someone's equal, they like you. Once you take that step up and you become that administrator, and now they have to so-called answer to you, that's an issue. Because we can say that we've come far, we've come a long way, in America. But there's still some people who do not respect Black women or minority women in certain leadership roles. And that's what I experienced a lot in education. And it's like, I'll tell you this, when I received the promotion, I have a friend, he's a white guy, and he actually told me, he said, saying it as a joke, he said, now remember, pastor's wife now, he said that you're either going to become a drunk or you're going to be popping pills. And I laughed at him, at the time. I was like, boy, please, I could barely put down a cup of wine, a glass of wine. My tolerance level was so low, but baby, along the way, the drinking with, it would be a small glass and then it turned into a bigger glass. And, yeah. And then before I left, what really, I ended up resigning last year, August 2023. And what made me resign, I was assistant principal at a high school here in Ocala. And when I tell you the mistreatment that I received at that school, it was so bad that I ended up taking a leave of absence, like for a couple months. So all the sick leave time that I had, I left for to keep, my mental, to keep my peace. I ended up resigning that position, and I don't regret it. I don't regret leaving because um, going to get help, I think sometimes for Black women, it makes it worse. So even when I'm coming to you and I'm asking for help, one of the things that they would say is, oh, tone is a big buzzword, your tone. It's like, okay, if my tone is an issue, tell me how to correct that, tell me how to fix that. But they could never tell me how to correct it or fix it. So I think they made my being at that high school, she and her staff they tried to make my life a living hell. And it's like, no, my peace is more than this. So the money that I'm making here, it does not equate to my peace. And it's like, okay, God, I'm gonna trust you. And I think during that time is where my book really birthed, because of all the pain. So out of pain, and you think of birth, when you're pregnant, you go through a lot of pain, different phases of pain in your during your pregnancy, and then when you give birth, it's like the most excruciating pain. But on the other side of that, once I push that baby out, that head comes out, whoo, relief. And everything on the other side of that is like, thank you, God. It's good. So from the pain of being in administration, and again, overlooked for different positions, being a principal or just, other roles. The book came. It was like, no, it's my time to tell my story, because I know that there are so many people who are in this same position, who's faced some of these things, and we don't speak out about it because we're afraid of retaliation. But because I was in that season of my life, I knew it had come to a close. It's like, okay, so I'm going to tell my story now, whether you agree with me or not. My story is my story, and I'm bold enough to tell it, where other people, I'll get maybe phone calls, or when I see people out in the out in the streets or whatever, yeah, you telling the truth, but they're not going to voice it because they're still in it. So yeah, public education, the modern day lynching tree. There's so many things that are still going on that are not right, in education. And our system was and still is the system was created to fail. It wasn't really created for minorities to be successful. And I think the more we talk about it and bring certain issues to the forefront, that's the only way we're going to make things better. And it takes more of, it's not just minorities speaking on these injustices. It takes our white friends as well, our
Yeah.
Caucasian counterparts, to speak up when they see certain things happening, in education.
100%. And I just want to say again the title so it's clear, because you did just say it, but you kind of just you just threw it in there. So Rometha's
Yeah.
book is called Public Education, the Modern Day Lynching Tree.
Yes. Public education, the modern day lynching tree. And it is sold in Walmart or at walmart.com, Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, and on my website at misseducator.com.
Perfect. I'm going to put your website in the show notes
Okay.
so
All
they
right.
could go through there. But yeah, as I'm listening to you, I can really relate to a lot of what you have felt throughout your career.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And
I'm
it's not just
yeah.
education. It's
I'm
really not.
laughing because the way you had years in your field and I could not even make it that long.
Listen.
I got my nursing degree in 2018 and it did not take long for the trauma to rack up. And I do
Yeah,
talk about it as well in my book because when I think about where I was taught to be silent,
that's
a
right.
lot of the corporate world had a big part of that because like
Our side, I mean, when we speak up, you're aggressive. You
I
don't know
just
how to talk to anyone. You're mean. You're all the things. And it's like, but no, I have a right, or I should have a right to speak my truth or how I'm feeling without someone becoming offended by what I'm doing. And I meant, even, oh my God, they had a petition. The last school that I was at, I guess they had a petition going around, I guess to get me, I don't know if to get me fired or to get me moved from the school. But when I tell you, people are mean, and they can never, there's never anything really valid that they can bring forth, with those accusations to say that done this or that. Is just because you're a Black woman and in that position. And there was one lady that I had, to read my book, and she told me, she said, she worked in the police department in New York, and she came to me and she was like, oh my God. She was like, I see myself in so many of those pages, of your book. So it's not just education, but I speak to education because that was the profession that I was in. But still, now to this day, there are so many. And I have a girlfriend who's, she's a nurse, and she walked away, from nursing. She's an entrepreneur and doing so many other great things now. But same thing, it's so many injustices, that we face just for being Black, and it's almost like the Black woman is at the bottom of the totem pole. Um, it's not fair, but that's where we are. So the more that we voice, you know, some of these things, and we let others know that these things are still happening, it's the only way that we're going to fix it. And again, for education, when I go back to education, when I'm seeing, I was an administrator of assistant principal of discipline for maybe 2, 3 years, maybe 3 years or so. But what happened in that position, I found myself suspending more minority students, alternatively placing more minority students, you know, expelling more minority students. And so it's like, Lord, it became a burden, you know. And then at the end of my career, it's like I found myself becoming more of an advocate for the kids. It's like, because some teachers are just mean. Some teachers are, not all teachers, but some teachers are just mean and nasty to the students. And, you know, they may allow a white student to behave a certain way. And then when the Black student behaves that same way, it's an issue, and they want to kick them out of their class. They don't want to call the parent because they're afraid, or not even if they're afraid that they're going to get cursed out or whatever. They just don't think that Black parents care about their children. And
Mm.
it's like, there's so many injustices, you know, that I witnessed over the course of my years in education. And it's like, we need to do better. And our parents, so our minority parents, and when I say minority, it's not just Black parents, it's Hispanic parents. You don't have a whole lot of Indian parents that have issues with their kids, but it's to all other that are not Caucasian. It's like, you have to get out there and be the voice for your children. Even if your child isn't the best child, even if your child has behavior issues, you're still that child's advocate. And so we have to go and address some of these issues that are going on in these schools if we want our kids to be successful.
Absolutely. And one thing motherhood did for me was pull out the advocate.
Yes,
'Cause,
absolutely.
yeah, we just have to
Absolutely.
speak up for our babies. And it's just very interesting because it's like there's just so many areas for growth, for change that
Yes.
are necessary. But I think at the end of the day, like you have to go where God has sent you. Like
Yes.
for you, that's education. Like
Mhm.
I'm I still am like scarred to this day. Like I want nothing to do with I I really don't want to go back to nursing. But if that's
If
what God
God
has for me,
says, yeah. And you know,
exactly.
we always say, you know, God, you have a sense of humor. Because even with the me going back, so now with the mentoring, I actually go into the schools. And we have this crazy thing. I don't know if it's in other counties and states, but here in Marion County, if you're not, or they say you can't contract for 2 years when you leave the county. So what I'm doing now is voluntarily. So I'm going into these schools 3 days a week, you know, and I have several schools that I go to and mentor these girls, but I do it because I don't want them to be that statistic. And we are, it's sad to say, but we as a people, we are a part of some of these issues because our children right now, our children are just so disrespectful. And when we think of the fighting in schools, a lot of times it's our babies who are fighting. It's the girls that I'm going to mentor on a daily basis that's doing the fighting. And it's like, if parents are allowing these kids to watch, I think it's Bad as East and Bad as South, whatever these shows are, where they're seeing the fighting and they're seeing the dysfunction, then that's what our kids are going to take to the schools. But with me leaving, again, it's like, let me try to get in front of the problem and not always reacting to, because that's what, you know, I found myself doing in discipline, reacting to the things that, you know, happen. So if I can get in front of these kids and, you know, build them up, show them, help them build self-confidence, self-worthiness, and all of those things, and prayerfully they'll go out with a different outlook or a different perspective when they are going into the schools, and go and get their education while it's free. because we don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
All of the crazy laws and things that are pushed out, from a county level to a state level,
Yeah.
to a national level. It's like we don't know. And one of the things, if they keep us uneducated, then they'll always rule us.
Yes.
But like I used to tell my boys, people cannot take your education from you. Once you become educated, they can't take that. They can take your certificates, your scholarships. They can keep you from playing football, basketball. They can keep you from all the things. But when you become educated, then you'll be able to overcome a lot of things that you face in our current society.
Absolutely. And I love that you have switched your approach from being reactive or like doing damage control to being proactive. I think that's so important. And I'm going to read your business card. Says, if we are going to be part of the solution, we have to engage the problems.
Absolutely.
And I love that. And also I want to add to that, like, the problems are not the people.
Not
because it's easy to label them as like the problem child, or it's those people, the Black people that no, like the problems are deeper than that.
They are so much deeper. And I think, again, once we realize that it's children that we're talking about, it's our babies, who should be at the forefront, but we allow politics to get in front of that. We allow poor parenting to get in front of those things, and those things kind of blur out the big problem, the big issue. And that's my take. Now, if we had more people in education who really care about education. So there's this phrase that we normally say in education: we're moving in the right direction. And for 20 years, again, being in education, I've heard that. And it's like, tell me how we're moving in the right direction if minorities are still at the bottom when we pull data. Our reading scores are still the lowest. Our math scores are still the lowest. Our suspension rates are at the highest. Tell me how we're moving in the right direction. But I had a friend that I met a couple months ago. I collabed with them on Friday. She's in Texas, and she actually told me, she said, Rometha, we are moving in a direction that the majority wants us to go in. So when the majority says we're moving in the right direction, we're moving in a direction that they want us to go in. So somebody has to fill those prison systems up. We're moving in the right direction, the direction that they want us to go in. And parents need to stop and think about that. It's like they're building more prisons. Why? Because we have kids who are not being educated. And when kids are not being educated, then they're most likely going to go out and they're going to shoot, and they're going to rob, and they're going to kill, and they're going to be on drugs, and they're going to do all the other things that are opposite to being educated. And not saying that educated people don't make mistakes and don't fall to some of the things that I just stated. But when you're educated, most times you're working to get out of a system, a broken system, a system that's out there to keep us down. You work harder, to not be that statistic, to defy those odds or the things that are against us.
Exactly. And as I was listening to you, I'm like, I've heard this before. I'm like, let me Google this. And it's the school to prison pipeline.
There you go. There it is. It's a real thing.
It is. And I don't know if people even know about that. And we're not going to unpack that today.
No. And those are things, again, that the more we talk about prayerfully, people will, like, we know it's happening, but it's not at the forefront, because now the things that are at the forefront, you have this presidential election, you have our great governor, you have the school shootings, you have in our community, on every corner we turn, we have our boys shooting each other, killing one another. We have our girls fighting one another. So we are, and I said in a video before, we are like imploding, self-imploding. And imploding means we're killing ourselves, our own people. We're harming and hurting our own people. And as long as we do that, these systems that are with the standardized tests and the school of prison pipeline, the so-called fight against critical race theory, and all of these things are going to continue because our focus is somewhere else.
Yes. Sometimes my mind is blown by the things that our government passes quickly. And it's like you could take care of that, but you couldn't take care of all these
Absolutely.
other issues. And I saw something the other day on Facebook, and it was like, when we say make America great again,
Hmm.
when are we
What does
going
that
back
mean?
to exactly?
But you're moving in a direction. Hear me. Moving in a direction in which the majority wants us to move in. So when they say that, it's like people were being killed and lynched and mistreated on all fronts. So when you say you're making it great again, is that really what you want? Is that what you're looking forward to? Keeping your foot on the neck of people, keeping people oppressed? And that's what's happening. So, and right back to education, we often talk about representation matters. And even for myself, being in that system, I took pride in being a Black administrator because our kids don't see that. So it's hard to reach and strive to be something you don't see. So
Yes.
we're not seeing it. What am I working towards? And so we have to work on really becoming more diverse and giving opportunities to all people. And again, I'll go back and say what I said about our white friends and counterparts. They have to play a role in this as well. It's not, we can't do it alone. And even when you think back to some of the riots, and not the riots, but some of the walkouts and things that happened way back with Martin Luther King and all of the things that they did. It took a group of people. It took all colors, all nationalities. It took everybody to solve some of these issues. So we're better together, and that's what we have to do if we want to see better. We have to unite.
Exactly. Exactly. I didn't know we were gonna go here, but it's
Yeah.
very relevant to current events because even
Yes.
as we're talking, I'm thinking how America is focused on getting back to, and meanwhile, we're talking about getting back, and we got so much things going on our own, on our homeland, on our soil, and
Yeah.
the other countries are not focused on getting back. They're focused on moving ahead,
Moving forward, moving
and
forward.
we are here
Yeah.
looking stupid, getting left behind.
Yeah. And when I when you look at the cover of my book, I have a lot of people who I know, for some older people, um, they probably don't know how to take it. And some people think it's just so negative, but when I talk about that noose, and it's like that noose represents all the things. It represents the standardized testing. It represents our kids being put on all these different medications, our kids being staffed into these different ESC programs, and it's all the things. So it's not just the one thing. These are things that are affecting everybody. But you know, the minorities, at a higher cost.
Yeah, and I think as minorities and as like a society, like we need those uncomfortable images because when we get rid of them or we pretend that they don't exist, that's when we're like doomed to repeat the same mistakes.
Yeah,
So I'm
they
happy
they
that you
get
did that.
worse. Yeah, they get
Yeah.
worse.
I'm happy
And
you
it's
did not shy away from that imagery.
Yeah. And I think one of my publisher and I, one of the things she was like, no, you're gonna stand 10 toes down. It's like, yeah, because it's here now. So I have to own it. But at the same time, when you read the book, it offers different challenges and things on what we could possibly do to make things better. And I believe that there are other people who have other solutions and things that they can bring forth to say, hey, maybe we can do this, but it takes a collective effort,
Yes.
to make things better. And if we don't, we will be back. If we're not careful as a people, we will be back to where we were.
Mm-hmm.
We will be back to where we were if we're not careful. So, yeah.
Yeah. All right. I'm like, we could forget the rest of the questions because we have gotten into so much. And I'm so thankful for you and your wisdom and your story. Do you have any closing words, especially something to just encourage somebody, whether it's the teen mom, the person who is fighting for their marriage, or even somebody who's in the education system?
Yeah. And so for each person, for a teen mom, I would say don't give up. You have to be persistent and you have to have resilience and keep moving forward and knowing that that child that you're having is dependent on you. And if you give up, what are you showing or what are you giving to that child? So from Dr. Ebony, keep pushing. We have to keep pushing. For the person that's fighting for their marriage, it's I think the biggest thing with that is, what does your marriage mean to you? And as I stated, my spiritual mother, she said to me, it's not just about me. And even with her saying that, having to go back to the word of God and petition God and pray to God on what he would have you to do in that moment. When you get hurt by somebody, you just don't stop loving someone. And when you do get married, thick and thin, better or worse. But you have to evaluate your marriage to see like abuse. I'm not telling anyone to stay in any abusive relationship, nor will I say if your husband is a habitual, adulterer. I'm not going to tell anyone to stay in that, but you have to find out what God is saying to you for your marriage. And go with that. Go with what God says. God would not lead us. He will not lead us wrong. And I think for that season in my marriage, I did what God wanted me to do, and because of that, we're able to see the fruit of our marriage now. And then for the educator, I would say I will not tell anybody to walk away from education. If nothing now, we need more minority educators than ever before. Representation matters. However, I think we need to stand up on some of the issues, some of the things that we see. Like they say, if it's a spade, call it a spade. If it's wrong, then we need to address the things that are wrong and also come to solutions on things that we can make better. So parents, we need you. Parents are needed in education. Our system will get better if we had more parents to stand up and support their children, whether, again, right or wrong, be that child's advocate, but also go to that school, show up to the board meetings and those things to let, your elected officials, let them know that you are concerned about your children. And if we begin to educate our children, then they won't build as many prisons as they're building. So those are the things that I would say. If you're in education, again, be there for the right reasons, not just for the insurance and the days off, the holidays and all of that. Be there to make a difference in the life of a child. And when you see even your coworkers, being mistreated and overlooked and, not being promoted to different levels, then speak out on those things, because that's the only way things are going to change for the better.
Yes. Mike, now we can mic drop.
Mic drop. Yes. Yes.
Thank you
Yes.
so much, Rometha.
You are so welcome.
I'm like, I need a nap because you just gave me so much food for thought, and we done been through a lot in this time.
Listen, for real. And this is the things that I've shared, just surface level things, surface level things. But again, the things that so many other people are experiencing and not knowing, how to get through those things. But I think for me, it's the love of Christ that has gotten me through all the things. And again, now I think the older I get, and I wish I would have done it younger, but I didn't know. But just my relationship with God and just trying to stay in the word and trying to remain prayerful, that's allowed me to keep moving even when I wanted to stop. Even at the end of, education, walking away from that for 21 years, that was painful. That was traumatic in itself, because you're walking away from something you've done for 21 years of your life. And now I'm trying to give birth to a new baby, going out here and building my nonprofit and walking away from an income that I know was coming every other week. And now I'm just out here, in these streets, trying to make things happen. But again, I know God is not leading me in the wrong way. Right now, I just want to serve God's people in any capacity that I can. So whether that's, speaking to moms, teen moms, speaking to marriages, speaking to those in education. Now, my gift that I give now is serving to others and speaking to some of the injustices and the things that are going on today. Yeah. Trying to put a smile on people's faces. It's like, God. That's my everyday prayer. Like, Lord, help me to put a smile on somebody else's face. Help me to encourage another sister or brother out there. That's what it's about.
I love that. And you are a true change. I don't know if it's change maker or change agent, all of the above. That is you. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much for the opportunity. This has been good.
I'm like, if I need a guest in a couple of months, I know who I'm circling back to.
Yeah, I got you. I'm coming. And again, even if you have something, again, I think what Dr. Ebony started is the beginning of something great. Yes. And we know that we need, the platforms and just to be encouragement to others, just to keep pushing and to do better. So I'll be forever grateful for that as well. Agreed. Yeah. And listen, I have you here too, girl. I'm almost there. I think I'm in the middle of chapter 4. So This has been good. Thank you.
She's talking about her copy of Thrive, in case you're
Thrive. Yes. And Thrive. Yeah. So congratulations to you. And I'll say this. One other thing about becoming an author, there's so many people I think that have things to say. Everybody wants to critique the person who's done the thing. And it's like they sit and they have aspirations and they want to do the thing and sometimes are not able to accomplish the thing. But when you do it, everybody wants to critique you and tell you, this, that, and the other. But
oh no. All right, y'all. I think her phone died. But we're going to go ahead and end this episode. It has been tremendous. And I hope that you got something really good from it. I'm so thankful to Rometha Gilmore. Y'all heard her. And I'm going to include her information in the show notes because she might be the answer to some of y'all's prayers. I mean, such wisdom, such experience. Yeah, guys. See y'all next week. Thank you for tuning in to Get Up 10.